Good afternoon. This is Ron Brown. It is the 24th of June, 2022. It's a Friday afternoon. We have a very strong day in the market today. It is an oversold bounce as of now. It's a counter trend rally, but this is very hopeful. Anyway, I'm gonna show you something that I've been working on the past week, and want to share it with you. And I'll put these files up on the server for those of you who are members of the Insider Club. You can start prospecting yourself. Now, this is my standard disclaimer. Any stock, index, or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. As I've said before, if you're not an HGSI member, if you don't use the software, you can get a free 30-day trial. No credit card is required. And you can also have access to my Insider Club and the files. Just go to highgrowthstock.com. Here's the complete URL, but if you just go to highgrowthstock.com, you'll find the link to the 30-day trial. Okay, what I've put together here are some charts using the comparative relative strength of a stock or an index to the SPX or the S&P 500. Now the way this works is I'm going to go in and edit the indicator and go to the relative strength comparative, and it is represented by the blue line. It's blue, which corresponds to this blue line, and what this means is I'm comparing a security or an index to the SPX, the S&P 500, which is a much broader look at the market than using the NASDAQ composite. You can use anything you want here, but these charts are based upon the SPX. Now, when the line is going down, the blue line is going down, that means that the SPX, even though it is going down, also is outperforming the security. Now when this blue line turns up like it did here, and the SPX is bouncing around, it just means during this period this stock is outperforming the index at that point. When they're flat, and this is very short here, but when it's flat or relatively flat, it means the market and the stock are trading together. Now this dotted line is the industry group line because I wanted to show you the comparison of the relative strength of the SPX and also the group line. Now I'm doing this with about a half hour to go in this very strong market. You can see that the group has turned up, and also the blue line has turned up on this stock. And let's see what this stock is. It's a Zeta Global. I just grabbed this one because I grabbed it out of one of my user smart groups low pivots with a VPA flag. And I'm going to transfer this up here to this view, which I'm including in my top-down process views for market analysis, and it's number 6, performance versus the S&P 500. And the way I've set this up is these are end-of-day quotes from yesterday for, this is for prospecting when the market's closed, and then these columns here I put in so we can see what's happened or happening with stocks intraday, which have come up in this particular user smart group at the end of the day. Now it really doesn't matter what you use to analyze over here, because I'm just doing this because it limits it to 16 stocks, and I like to look for low risk entries, which is the low pivot. You can see that these were all up yesterday and they closed near or at the top of their range, and today every one of these stocks are up. They're not all trading towards the top of their range, but most of them are doing very well. So here is Zeta. This is a low pivot stock. So I'm going to make this larger. And I'll zoom in on this. Why is this a low pivot stock? And why did it show up? Because there's a VPA flag stopping volume, and this low is slightly lower than the prior day's low, and the high is lower than the prior day's high. So consequently, this is a low pivot, and the buy point would be right there on this gap up this morning. So we know that it's outperforming the S&P 500 right now because this blue line is up, and like I said, the group is up too. Now, without this blue line, it's pretty hard to tell. And if you look over here, this is the S&P 500. It's pretty hard to tell if this stock is outperforming the S&P, but with the blue line, it's easy to tell. Now, these numbers over here on the left, this is the end of day information. You can see over one day, one is the S&P 500. So anything over 1.03 means that this stock yesterday on this move up you can't tell without looking, but it was actually outperforming the S&P 500 slightly. Now I put this chart in here. These charts you're going to find under my contextual intrinsic setup risk charts. This is chart number 8, and if you prefer a bar chart, just go down to 8A. I put both of them in. Some people prefer the bar charts. I put bar charts both for the S&P and for the security or industry group that you want to analyze. This works very well for industry groups too. The purpose of this chart really is to find the stocks that are outperforming the S&P 500 or any other index you want to use, but we have this information for the S&P 500. You can see every one of these columns are compared to the S&P 500, so you can see what this stock has done over multiple time periods and what it did yesterday. Now let's take a look at Carnival Corporation here. The shipping stocks are on fire today. This is up 12% at 100% of its range. Yesterday, you can see at the close, it slightly underperformed the S&P because it's 0.99. So if I bring this up, the S&P was up yesterday, but the stock really didn't move much from the prior day. Let me go to the candle chart, easier to read. We have a VPA flag. That's why it's included in this low pivot group. Let me make this larger and zoom in on this. I'm all the way in. Anyway, this low, as you can see, is slightly lower than this one, and the high is slightly lower than this one. So this is a low pivot with a VPA flag, and here's your buy point at the high of the prior day. So had I been watching this at the beginning of the day and looking for a trade, this was a buy point. Now the blue line's going up, and the green and the group line is going up, and look at this volume, very heavy volume today. Now all throughout this period, for the most part, I mean there was an up period here, but the blue line has been going down, flattened out here. It was trading in conjunction with the S&P, and then even though the S&P was falling off here, this was falling off a lot faster. So weaker than the S&P all the way down to here, and then it bounced up, traded slightly stronger than the S&P, and was moving with the S&P until today, where it is outpacing the S&P. So it's relatively stronger. All during this time period when Carnival Corp was going down, not only relatively weak to the S&P, the industry group was going down too. This is why I wanted to include the industry group. look how this stock and the industry group, of course, they're going to trade together. It's not a very large group. But when the group and the stock itself started outperforming the S&P, then you know it's outperforming the broader market. Now, at night, let me see if I can get out of here. You can scan any group of stocks and look here. These are going to be the closing prices and the volume, and just look over here and see which stocks outperformed the S&P that day. Just remember, these numbers are from the night before, and they correspond to these numbers down here in this box. These are end of day comparisons right here, and you can see that looking back the number of days, like 3 months, this has underperformed the S&P by 40%. If you're a long side player, you don't want to be buying stocks that are underperforming the indexes. If you're a short side player, this really gives you insight into that. That's all I'm going to say about this right now. I'm just really doing this, putting it together, and I think it's a really good way to determine strength of a security when you compare it to the broader market. So there will be more to come on this. Hopefully I can get around to doing a webinar on it pretty soon as I get more into it, develop the concept a little bit more.